One of the stories told about the final days of Rush is that the owner of the drugstore just walked away with the door open and the stock intact. Our next story is about a university professor who walked away from the strife of the 1960s to find a different perspective in the solitude of the Arkansas Ozarks.
Well, if you're a young man, you become a certain age, you're responsible to apply for the draft.
Tom Kimmons teaches some of Arkansas's brightest young people each summer at the Governor's School. He talks about balance among the things we need for the body, the mind, the spirit.
The individual has an intellectual part, he has an emotional part, and he also has a physical part.
In 1970, Tom felt his life was completely out of balance. He left graduate studies and teaching at the University of Missouri and came to his native Arkansas, to the valley of the Little Red River near Shirley, looking for the things he needed.
I guess I was really a product, a victim, if you will, of the 60s in the sense of all the speed and the complexities and the technology and just the problems of the 60s, the racial problems, well, at least we got nice Vietnam problems. Seems like by the end of the 60s, these had got to the proportion that it wasn't clear for me what I was doing, where I belonged, where I ought to be, and all I could keep thinking is that somehow I've got to get back home.
Now, home for Tom and Brandy Kimmons and their daughters Jenny and Casey Lee is partly a small farm place on the edge of Shirley, but it is also a cabin a few miles up the river on Bear Branch, where the Kimmons spent their first 8 years back in the Ozarks.
Jenny! Casey!
When we lived up on the river, it was not an easy life. It's beautiful, yeah. It's natural, yeah. But it was hard work. When we built our cabin, we had to haul logs and skid them off the sides of the mountains with trace chains, and we hauled tons and tens of tons of rocks on a wheelbarrow across Bear Branch. But somehow that was what we needed. You don't get confused with a lot of language and words, and you can feel that. And the balance began to come back. It also, I think, in terms of music, that's what stimulated me to write songs about Arkansas, about the woods, and about the rivers.
It's the Ozark Operator, live with the mountains and streams. It begins at dawn and plays on.
It was here on Bear Branch that Tom wrote most of the songs that became the Ozark Operetta, a show that would be sanctioned by the Arkansas Sesquicentennial Commission and would make over 30 performances throughout the state in 1975 and 1976.
At the first light of dawn, wakes up the morning with this silly old song. And
it would be an event of family and friends, with Brandy as manager and the girls often on stage. It would speak of personal relationships.
Is to live out my days loving you.
It would speak of a home in Arkansas.
In the land of music, of love and music, in the land of music and la da dum da doo.
I know when we first moved back, we had been married for several years, but we didn't want kids. There was so much violence, there was so much fear, and as we began to feel more like whole people, we came together ourselves, and it started feeling like it was the right thing to do to affirm life. We went through the birthing process together, and it was probably the most intimate and the most fulfilling part of our relationship. Jenny made us parents, and Casey made us family.
Well, we lived on Bear Branch probably close to nine and a half years. and we had our kids. It was fine while they were very young infants and still babies, but as they began to be toddlers, they needed more things, we felt like, than the kind of isolation that we had at Bear Branch. So we did choose to move into Shirley and prepared them to socialize and be ready for school. Shirley's really a nice place to live. It's quiet, and the people, for the most part, are real receptive and real warm and hospitable. And I think the kids fit in real well. And I'm happy that they have the opportunity to live in a small rural community because they have a chance to get to know their neighbors.
Hey, I'm here.
How you doing? Just fine. How are y'all?
Y'all got any nails in this place?
Oh, yeah.
Tom and Brandy Kimmons brought their hard-won sense of balance, their children, and their songs into Shirley. They also brought a spirit of involvement in the community that has begun to have long-reaching effect and to attract attention around the state. Starting with Brandy volunteering, then working in the schools, and Tom's involvement with a new water system. The Kimmons have moved into a community development corporation with town leaders such as Mayor John Clark Jr. involved.
The city has begun to reemerge, and there's a new excitement in Shirley that it's not been present during my lifetime, kind of a rebirth or a resurgence. Tom and Brandy Kimmons have played a very vital part in helping the resurgence.
The overall long-term goals are going to be to make the area better for our youth. And that should include better education, it should include job creation, it needs to include beautification and cleanup. We have an area down by the community center, some ball fields, but we'd like to put an open-air pavilion, generally to fix those acres up so that they're more usable.
I think we own the up now, and I think a lot of other communities could do the same.
Floyd Haley is just one of the folks in Shirley who believe in what the community can do.
And that's what you got to have, and we all proud of it.
The bottom line is, with our society, with our state, with our communities, we've got to be able to communicate with people, and we've got to be able to touch the things that we hold in common. If you don't get back to your roots, if you don't get back to and free your senses, it's hard to get to those values that make us the best we can be.
When you think you're free, come to my home and rescue heaven. Call on me when you think you're free enough to